Other lines, we go beyond boundaries.
You know, let's be honest here. This is an organization that sent nearly 3,000 terrorists to Israel, and on the most part, they were proud. They don't care if they die. All they care about is killing Israelis and killing Jews.
Why is it that the Palestinians cannot go by dialoguing with these people through other international bodies?
Straight talk, no holds barred.
That's what Hamas did, and Hamas say they didn't do it, but Hamas lied.
You contradict what America's report, you contradict Israel's report.
The Liberation Organization died. The children, they will rise up tomorrow and fight for liberty.
Biggest conversations from around the world. Borderlines with Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. Fridays at 4 p.m. Let's talk.
And welcome to Borderlines, Lagos, Nigeria, wherever you are listening from. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. My guest on Borderlines today is a senior colleague. That's what I will call him, a senior colleague, and it's an absolute pleasure. So I'm a bit nervous because when you speak to senior colleagues, when you interview senior colleagues, like they can literally correct you and you're like, oh my God, am I doing it right? So yes, you guys don't often hear me nervous, but I am nervous because why shouldn't I be? He's like mega award winning. He's an author. He shakes tables. He literally probes the conscience of government whenever, wherever he can. And, you know, he doesn't know what this means, but in Nigeria, he's somebody I would call an egbon, right? An egbon, Mr. Gideon Levy, means an older brother. Welcome to Borderlines, to Nigerian radio.
It's really my pleasure. Don't be nervous. And I'm not a senior and for sure not an old journalist. I'm just an equal colleague.
Well, thank you for that. Well, you're very kind. So I'll accept it as that. Let me give Lagos, Nigeria, and we have lots of people listening from abroad, just an outline of who you are. Okay. Gideon Levy is a journalist and an author, as I said earlier. He writes opinion pieces for Haaretz. And you guys, some of you regular listeners, would have heard me make reference to certain things on Haaretz. Sometimes when I interview some of our other guests, okay? Gideon was born in Tel Aviv, but Gideon's grandparents actually were killed in the Holocaust, okay? His father escaped to Mandate Palestine, and I'm going to ask him to tell us about that because it's quite an interesting one, how he got to Mandate Palestine. By the way, Mandate Palestine, you people, we've been teaching you about the history of Israel, Palestine. You must know Mandate Palestine was between 1920 to 1948 till the state of Israel was declared. So Gideon has written loads and loads of sort of opinion pieces. He's written books. You've seen him on Al Jazeera. You would have seen him on other TV stations. He's called upon not just for his opinion all the time, but most importantly for his knowledge. So, Mr. Gideon Levy, welcome again.
Thank you so much for having me. Really, I'm really excited. It's my first interview ever in Nigeria.
Oh, so we have, you see, Lagos, Nigeria. This is an exclusive. All right. I'm smiling from ear to ear. You must be watching us on YouTube because we're streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook. And as usual, you will be able to call in as soon as possible. Mr. Levy, there's a piece that you wrote just yesterday, I think it was. And that particular piece is what I'm going to call you on. We're going to start with that. You said, nobody stood up. So far, as far as is known, not even one case of disobedience has been registered in the IDF since the war broke out, except for one young man before his recruitment. Israel must stop abusing and humiliating Palestinian prisoners. An artillery shell signed by Israel's president could have hit a child in Gaza. You went on to say, hold on. You went on, sorry, I've lost my page now. Here we go. You went on to say, an artillery shell signed by Israel's president could have hit a child in Gaza. The pilot bombs as they have never been bombed before. The drone operators kill by remote control in wholesale quantities never known before. The artillery men shell more than ever. The heavy engineering equipment operators destroy as they have never destroyed before. And even the open prison guards abuse prisoners they've never abused before. And nobody stood up. Tell us, what was going through your mind? Because obviously that sounded very, very angry and annoyed.
Absolutely, and that's my mood right now, because Israel has a history of launching wars. Some of them were justified, some of them were totally unnecessary, but there was always some kind of critique about the wars from within Israel, for sure in later stages, because in the beginning everyone is enthusiastic about the war. This will bring us security and peace. But when the war goes on, reality is exposed, and then we realize that neither security nor peace will come out of wars, because wars never succeed. And there are never really winners in wars, only losers. But this war is so different from all the other wars that Israel had launched, quite some dozens, namely that it is the first war in which there is no critic, no resistance, and above all, no soldiers who refuse to serve. You know, in all the other wars, there were very small figures, but still there were pilots who were not ready to bombard children and families and heavily populated neighborhoods. There were still some soldiers who say, no, I will not take part in this crime. And this time, nothing. And this makes me very frustrated and very sad, because it shows how Israel is deteriorating domestically.
Indeed, you talk about the lack of disobedience being a big issue in itself, and also being sort of evidence of the indoctrination that's going on. You talked about the fact that there had been disobedience before October 7th, and that disobedience has since gone away. Tell us about the disobedience before October 7th.
We had a whole wave in the last year, unprecedented, of pilots and soldiers who threatened not to come to the trainings because of what's called the legal reform or the legal revolution in Israel, which was quite dramatic. But then they were ready to pay the price, to refuse, not to come to trainings, not to come to serve. And now what do I say? They say that a legal reform is more of a reason not to serve rather than a massacre. That's quite terrible.
Indeed. In your early career, you worked for Shimon Peres. And I remember seeing not an interview, it was a discussion. I think it was in Westminster in London with Ilan Pape, who we've also had on this show, where you said, I can't remember the exact quote, but you said something about you didn't think there was anything worse than working for Shimon Peres. Why was that? Of course, Shimon Peres was, the Israeli prime minister, and he became president, and he was also known as protege to Ben Gurion. Lagos, Nigeria, those of you who don't know Ben Gurion was known as one of the fathers of Zionism. Could that have had anything to do with why you didn't like working for Shimon Peres?
No, first of all, I did like certain things, and I did it for 4 years, and it gave me a lot. The only problem is that I was then very, very young, even younger than you. I was 26 then, but I was so naive to believe that those politicians really mean what they say, and really mean to create some kind of equality between us and the Palestinians. And throughout time, I realized that none of them, including not Shimon Peres, had the slightest intention to treat the Palestinians as equal human beings like us. They made some courageous offers for peace, but they were lacking one thing. They were lacking watching them as equal human beings with equal rights. We never said so. And therefore, it was a big disappointment to realize that even the man of peace of Israel, as the Nobel Prize, Peace Nobel Prize winner, finally, when it got to really putting an end to the occupation, putting an end to the apartheid, he offered minor offers, partial offers. None of them can bring justice.
I was in Israel not so long ago. I wasn't in Israel for fun. I was invited by the Israeli Foreign Affairs as a journalist to come and see things, what happened on the 7th of the 10th ourselves, and for us to be able to report on it. I'd like to take you back to October 7th last year, 2023. Where were you when you heard what was happening, and what were your immediate response and thoughts?
Yeah, that's a nice question, because I was jogging like every morning, early in the morning at 6 o'clock in the park. And nothing told me that something is going to happen. At 6:30, while jogging, I heard horrible booms in the sky and a siren. Now, we had it in the past, but now it was really out of the blue. I continued to jog. There was another siren, but still I thought maybe it's, just two sirens and nothing is happening. I went home, and then, as usual, I went to the swimming pool. In the swimming pool, they rushed me to get out quickly, because they heard that there are some hostages in the south and it's going to become a war. So I was the last one to leave the swimming pool, which was then closed for a few weeks. And then I came home and I saw the most amazing video I've ever seen in my life. Two pickup cars of Hamas fighters in the middle of Sderot, which is a Jewish Israeli town in the south, not far from the border. It looks to be so weird. I mean, how did they get there? I know we have this huge barrier between Gaza and Israel. We spent so much money in building this barrier. How did they make it to Sderot? And then someone told me, listen, it is much more serious, the neighbors, much more serious than you think. There are 100,000 hostages. And within few hours, the 100,000 hostages became few hundreds. The very few killed became 1,200 killed people. And there started this whole unbelievable journey ever since then, into which nothing was expected. We were first all in shock. Then we were humiliated. Most of Israelis were very humiliated. And then started the process which led us until today with this horrible massacre in Gaza.
You have once said, when you described Hamas, I think it was in 2010, there had been an Hamas attack on Israel. And you said, we have to ask, why did Hamas attack? Again, the same question applies to October 7th, although many people resent it. I'm asking you now, why do you think Hamas attacked on October the 7th?
Not only resent it, but also are not ready to accept this question at all. They see it as an illegitimate question, because they think that in asking why, you legitimize the attack. So I don't legitimize anything. This attack, I was in the kibbutzim, in the towns that were attacked 2 days, on Monday, It took place on Saturday. Monday, I was there, and I saw the most devastating scenes that I've ever seen. It was horrible, and nobody can justify it. And still, you have always to ask, why do they do it? You have your Boko Haram, and we have our own Hamas, but still there is a difference. Because Boko Haram is a fundamentalistic organization who, as far as I know, wants to implement Islam everywhere. Hamas is also a fundamentalistic organization, but its first course, I believe, is still liberating Palestine, liberating Gaza. And your listeners should know, I'm sure they know, that Gaza is the biggest cage in the world for the last 17 years. It is a prison under Israeli siege, Israeli and Egyptian siege. Almost nobody can get in, almost nobody can get out. There's a total control on the products that get in and out. And this is in many ways an experiment in human behavior. Because if you think that if you lock 2.3 million people in a cage, you will get all kind of charity groups and not violent and dangerous terror organizations, you are wrong. You see, terror was always the weapon of the weak ones. I can assure you that the Hamas would love to have jets and just put the bottom and send rockets. I'm sure they would love to be more precise in their hittings, but they are under siege. And their fight, first of all, for liberating Gaza, and secondly, also for very fundamentalistic Islamic cause, which I cannot be part of it, and I totally don't agree to them because they are anti-democratic, they are fascist in a way. But finally, you have to ask yourself, what did you expect when you put 2.3 million people in a cage?
Indeed, a question. Oh, my technical people are asking if you could, that when you sit back, they're not able to capture you on camera. I guess they want to
sorry,
see.
Sorry.
I guess they would like
I
to
thought
see
we are on radio. I'm sorry.
We are on radio, but we're streaming live. We're streaming live
Sure,
on...
sorry.
We're
Sorry, I will not move from now. I will not move and even not breathe.
Indeed. I want to come to... where is this quote? There's a quote, something you talked about. Yeah, you said, when I first started covering the West Bank for Haaretz, I was young and brainwashed. I would see settlers cutting down olive trees and soldiers mistreating Palestinian women at the checkpoints, and I would think, these are exceptions, not part of government policy. It took me a long time to see that these were exceptions. These were not exceptions. They were the substance of government policy. As somebody who has worked for government before, there's so much we still need to get to. But how much do you believe the people of Israel, having been brainwashed with that indoctrination, can impact government policy? The sort of policy that's fundamentally based on apartheid, ethnic cleansing, assault, violation of human rights, etc. How much responsibility do you think the Israeli people or the citizens of Israel can indeed influence the government's policy?
They surely can, first of all in elections, but not only. I think you see the polls now. There's a big majority of Israelis who support this war, a huge majority. And I can give you from our days the way that their brain is being washed. You know that in Israel in the last 3 months, you hardly see images from Gaza on TV and in the newspapers. They don't show it. Not because someone told them not to show it. By all means not. They are free. They are commercials. They do it because they don't want to bother the Israelis who don't want to see what we are doing. That's a kind of brainwash. Not to show the full reality, the full truth, is a brainwash. To prevent your viewers and readers of seeing what your own troops are doing, the crimes that they are committing, the killing, the destruction in the most unlimited way. This is brainwash. But brainwash goes also to the beginning, to the establishing of the state. We were told from the moment we started to understand anything. I was brought up in Israel in the 50s, and we were always told that we are the good ones and the Arabs are the bad ones, that they only want to push us to the ocean, that this land belongs to us, that the Jewish people arrived in a people without land arrived in a land without people, all kind of lies. That we were very few and weak and they were very strong. We were the Davids, they were the Goliaths. That Israel always wanted peace and they wanted war. And you get it through the education system, through the media, and you are influenced, you are brainwashed. You know, Israel in 48 had evacuated, expelled, and destroyed over 400 Palestinian villages and totally destroyed them and covered them up with forests. I was never told about it. I saw here and there ruins of Palestinian houses in Israel. I never bothered to ask myself, where are the owners of those homes, of those beautiful buildings, of those ruins? Where are they? Where are they living? What happened to them? Never bothered. All those things, you are really being taught not to ask questions, to accept the axioma that your people is the right one, the chosen one, and that you are fighting a very cruel enemy. And in this battle, it's either them or us. They were born to kill, and we were born for peace. Such a set of lies, but all of us grow up with them.
Indeed, you've called, I think you on that same conversation with you and Ilan, I think you called it the most aggressive regime, the most cruel and criminal regime on earth. That's what you called Israel.
No, this I don't think I called it. I don't think that Israel is the most cruel regime. There are some more cruel regime, but it's for sure the most cruel regime in the West.
In the West.
I wouldn't make a comparison. Is North Korea a more cruel regime or not? Are certain regimes in Africa in the past, were they more cruel or not? Was colonialism more cruel? I don't get into this. I never said that's the most cruel regime in the world. No. I just think that the regime in the occupied territories is one of the most cruel tyrannies in the world today.
Right.
And the way that we treat Palestinians, I can't think about many other regimes that treat their inhabitants in the same way for so many years.
Indeed. There's a voice note I'd like to hear. We tried to get it on the system, but we couldn't. Is by Hamed Al-Nouk, who I think you know, the founder of We Are Not Numbers. And he said this a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to play it. We're going to play it via the mic so the people can hear it.
Made the bomb and the media enabled them. They gave them the cover to do as many atrocities as they desire. I just can't fathom the fact that there are already 6,000 Palestinian children killed. My nieces and nephews were cut into pieces. Their body parts were everywhere, mixed with the stones and the rocks of my family's house. And we're seeing the politicians, the journalists, turning a blind eye. Some people actually commented, Hamas killed your family, blame Hamas. But we know who killed our families. We know who these F-16 belong to. We know our killers. We know our murderers. And we will never forgive them. The kind of retaliation that Israel is doing in Gaza amounts to war crimes. Bombing hospitals, bombing schools, bombing mosques, bombing churches, bombing refugee camps. And yes, you covered what happened on the 7th of October. Good for you. Now cover what Israel is doing to Gaza. They don't. They don't think of us as equal human beings. Palestinians die, Israel is killed. Palestinians are terrorists, Israeli army, no. Although if you compare and contrast between the casualties of the Palestinians and the Israelis, when it comes to the civilians, the number of Palestinians would be 100 times higher. When the media cares about 40 beheaded babies, fake news, and then people get this first impression, they keep this first impression, and then the first impression in media always lasts forever. They did the same thing with the bombing of the hospital. They said, no, it's a Palestinian missile. Oh, come on, do you think we're stupid? It landed on the right place, on the right time, of the hospital that you already warned to evacuate. But the media will pick up that, and that would be the first impression. The Palestinians killed themselves, and then now they came up with another lie. A baby baked in an oven. Come on. And then a few days later, they said, no, actually, this is not actually true. And the media always repeats these lies. And with these lies, they are creating the cover for Israel. At the same time, Israel is doing all of that on us. They are literally killing us live on the news every day. And thousands of people are being killed. Thousands of children are being murdered and massacred. And we're screaming to the media, please cover that, talk about it. And they just don't.
I am sorry to say that your mass media, the Western mass media, always beside the Israelis. Your baby in this area.
Okay, that was Ahmed. It actually starts with he blames the Western media for killing his family. I think he lost 23 members of his family. One child is remaining, called Omar. I think Omar is either 3 or 5 years old. What do you make of the Western media's reporting of this war, this conflict, this genocide, whatever you'd like to call it?
With all the empathy, I don't think that the Western media is the problem. I think the Western governments are the problem. And if to go domestically, the Israeli media is the problem. Because the Western media, I just watch international networks, and I must tell you, even CNN showed this time amazing footage. Al Jazeera English for sure, Sky News, and BBC. So I don't think the problem is the Western media. I think the problem is, on one hand, the Israeli media, which shows nothing, and on the other hand, the growing gap between Western public opinions and Western governments. Because the Western public opinion are very strong now. You see the demonstrations all over Europe. Solidarity with Palestinians, solidarity with Gaza, from the sea, from the river to the sea, Palestine is free. You hear it in many places, especially in the United States, and this is based on what they see in the media. The problem is that the governments totally support Israel in an unconditional way.
Well, that's quite something. Right, so let's talk about Israel's new campaign to, if you like, expel, deport Palestinians from their homeland once again to African countries. There's talk of Rwanda, there's talk of Congo. Indeed, I'm expecting there to be talk of Nigeria, although I can say I hope the Nigerian government will say no. We expect them to say no. What are your thoughts on that that it's not even an insinuation, it's actually being said openly. What are your thoughts on that?
I still want to believe that there will not be found one state, neither in Africa nor elsewhere, which will collaborate with this crime of war. I can't believe that money can buy everything, and I can't see any country absorbing refugees against their will. And I really hope that this is more of a propaganda, but nothing will come out of it. Actually, I'm almost convinced. The Palestinians will not go to Africa, and Africa will not accept the Palestinian refugees. And even Egypt is not ready to accept them. Their place is in Gaza, no other place. That's their home. And Israel has no right whatsoever to replace them, to relocate them. Who is Israel to relocate other peoples? Tomorrow they will come with another idea to relocate the people of Uganda into Nigeria. What will you say then? I mean, this whole discourse is a sick discourse.
South Africa has basically instituted a claim at the ICJ of genocide against Israel. I'd like you to listen to this clip, which is from the Israeli spokesperson. Let's do it.
For the tragic loss of human life. The state of Israel will appear before the International Court of Justice at The Hague to dispel South Africa's absurd blood libel. How tragic that the rainbow nation that prides itself on fighting racism will be fighting pro bono for anti-Jewish racists. We have no doubt that after the Jewish state brings to justice the perpetrators of the bloodiest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, history will judge South Africa for abetting the modern heirs of the Nazis. We assure South Africa's leaders, history will judge you, and it will judge you without mercy. South Africa has made itself criminally complicit with Hamas's campaign of genocide against our people. It shares culpability for the tragic loss of human life. The state of Israel will appear before the International Court of Justice at The Hague to dispel South Africa's absurd blood libel. How tragic that the rainbow nation that prides itself on fighting racism will be fighting pro bono for anti-Jewish racists. We have no doubt that after the Jewish state brings to justice the perpetrators of the bloodiest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, history will judge South Africa for abetting the modern heirs of the Nazis. We assure South Africa's leaders, history will judge you, and it will judge you without mercy. South Africa has made...
So, there's certain words, certain things that Elion, and incidentally, I met Elion whilst I was in Israel, and we had quite, a forthright exchange. Let's put it. He's from Finchley, which is curious. That's where I'm from in London as well. At least that's where I lived in London. So it's curious when I hear a Finchley boy talking in the way that he did. He said when Israel brings the perpetrators of October 7th to justice, what justice is he talking about?
I think I didn't hear this declaration ever. I think it's one of the most shameful declarations of Israeli propaganda, because Israel has the right to have propaganda, but not so cheap, please. I mean, there are certain levels that you become a grotesque, not anything else. What's his name? I never heard his name.
Elion.
And what is his position?
He's a spokesperson for the government. He's one of Netanyahu's spokesperson.
Okay, that's really one of the most shameful and humiliating declaration I've ever heard, full of lies, obviously. South Africa does not have any doubts for Israel's right to defend itself, but defending itself does not legitimize a genocide or a massacre. And above all, for me personally, South Africa was and is still, with all the problems, a role model of really fighting for justice. I'm very emotional about South Africa. I attended Nelson Mandela's funeral, both in Johannesburg and Cape Town, and then I went even to his village to attend the other part of the funeral. And I can't tell you how I admire Mandela, his way, and the revolution in South Africa, with all the problems. I'm aware to all the problems. But still, South Africa is not only a more just place today than it was in the late 80s, But South Africa is still a voice that should be listened, a voice of conscience. And to treat a voice of conscience in such a cheap way, such a demagogic way, really annoyed me. I couldn't hear to it. What does this has to do with the Holocaust? Always bring the Holocaust in. What does this has to do with Holocaust? There was a barbaric attack over Israel, and Israel thinks that after such a barbaric attack, it has the right to do whatever it wants, without any limitations. And this is a crime of war. And I'm very happy that South Africa went to the International Court of Justice, and I really wish them good luck.
What do you make of the U.S. response so far? In fact, Anthony Blinken is over there in Israel now, I think, or at least he'll be there tomorrow if he's not there already.
On his way.
He's on his way.
On his way.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you make of Blinken and Biden and their, no red line support for Netanyahu, and if by extension, his right-wing government or coalition government? What do you make of that?
Look, I think that Biden means well, but the way he gave Israel a green light to continue almost in an unconditioned way is shameful. The United States has the right to finance Israel, to send her aid as much as it wants, but is it really clever to give all this aid in an unconditioned way, not to put any red lights, red lines, nothing, everything is allowed? Israel, whatever Israel is doing now in Gaza is under the permission, I don't want to say the encouragement, but the permission of the United States. This should be remembered. And all those hollow talkings about humanitarian aid, just as lip service, so that the Democrats will feel good with themselves, are totally hollow. Because finally, with American weapons, Israel is massacring people of Gaza.
The war seems to be expanding, what with the killing of the senior Hamas member in Beirut, Al-Aruri, because my R's are bad.
Yes.
And then, of course, what happened in Iran recently, although, nobody's yet to claim, nobody's yet to actually claim that attack. Indeed, Israel hasn't officially claimed the assassination of the 8 or 10 Hamas members that were killed in Beirut. But there's no doubt that the war seems to be expanding beyond Israeli borders and could escalate to a regional war. Do you think it would? Could it? Is it possible?
It's definitely possible, but not probable. I hope so. I don't think that any of the parties want now an overall war. In the beginning of this war, I was really scared of it because this will be a game changer. If Hezbollah gets in, and maybe Iran gets in, and maybe the American gets in, then we face a world war. Then comes the Russians. Even if only Hezbollah gets in, it's a game changer. Because the military capabilities of Hezbollah are 100 times bigger and stronger than those of Hamas. They don't live under siege. They live in a sovereign country, and they have quite full freedom to get any ammunition and any arms they almost want. So I hope it will not get there, but nobody can guarantee that it will not happen. It's a very dangerous and very explosive situation.
I can't help, and I think many people can't help but think, look, Israel, the Americans unofficially kind of admitted that it was Israel that did the assassination, even though Israel hasn't officially come out to admit it. But if it is Israel, so I'm going to put that if it is Israel, that very clinical and methodical assassination of 8, 10 members of Hamas leader in Beirut to one flat, not an official office or building, where they were clearly having a meeting, actually goes to show, it is evidence that Israel can face and target Hamas leaders if that's who they are indeed fighting, but they're killing Palestinians instead. Or is that not evidence? What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I don't know anyone serious who have doubts that Israel did it. Secondly, it's not the first time that Israel is doing it. And let's say even that Israel has the right to do it because he was really a senior commander of Hamas. The question is it clever to do it? I guess that those who did it think more about a Netflix series or a Hollywood film, which will be made after a few months, because it's really very impressive, and you know how they do it, it's all almost science fiction, how they do it. But what comes out of it? The Middle East is full with graves of militants that Israel had assassinated, and all had replacements, and all had successors. And usually the successors were much more dangerous, more radical than those who were assassinated. So what is this game except of showing how strong we are and how James Bond we are? I'm not impressed by this at all. And it's also just adds to the flames, obviously.
Is Israel winning this war?
Nobody can win this war. Nobody. There will be no winners in this war. In many ways, the Hamas will rather win in the way that Hamas will never be crushed. And if they are not really totally crushed, it's their victory. Because we know it's not equal powers here. But except of this, there will be no winners and no achievements, only bad things. Nobody gains out of those wars, only loses.
Indeed. I'm going to ask our listeners to call in now because I know they must be ready, dying to talk to you. 0700 993 993 993. The female only line is 01465 7190. You can send a WhatsApp on 0809 597 5805. We will be taking your questions. And I think actually now, if you call, Gideon will be able to hear your questions directly. Okay, I'm coming to the calls now. Hello?
Oh.
Hello?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please turn off your radio.
Okay.
Okay, your questions only. Remember how we do it on Borderlines. Questions only, short and sharp. Go ahead.
Yeah,
your radio is not off.
My man, I've been following your discussion.
Your radio needs to be off, please. Otherwise, I have to disconnect you.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Sisi.
Good afternoon. What's your name and where you calling from, please?
Yeah, you have Emmanuel on the line. I'm calling from Ekpe.
Emmanuel, go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Benjamin Netanyahu had issues politically, before the invasion. And with some sort of calculation, I think the Israeli military has the capacity, to at least curtail the killings on that October 1st. Or 7th of October. Because if you see the timeline of Hamas carrying out the action, I think the government should have done something. Now, is it that this present war that's continued, that's lingered till now, is it a rage from the Israeli army or Benjamin Netanyahu playing politics?
Okay, thank you.
To cover up some of the issues he had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether you heard that properly. What Emmanuel was asking is the current war, is it Israel's revenge, a rage as a result of October 7th, or is it the IDF? The lines are going wild, so if you have a pen, Gideon, you may want to write it down. I'm going to go to the next one.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Can you turn
Hello.
off your radio? Yes, good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Tony. I'm calling from Tesla.
Your name is?
Tony.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I want to re-emphasize part of the question you have shown, that when Israel, when they know that they have the intelligence to target these Hamas people, then why this indiscriminate pounding of Gaza?
Okay.
Which led to about 20,000 casualties.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can you repeat, please, the question?
Yeah, the question was as an extension to what the question I asked earlier. Since Israel has the capabilities to be able to target Hamas directly, why then have they killed 22,000 and counting of Palestinians? Hello? Okay. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead with your question. Your name, where you're calling from, and your question.
My name is Adeni, calling from Ikorodu.
Okay, go ahead.
What my contribution is that I want to say I am of the opinion that Israel should not be killing people, most especially their fellow human beings.
Okay.
But I'm also on the other side of Israel.
Okay.
Because Yoruba used to say, Taban ju ada si oke ni igba igba.
But I need questions because we don't have time. Sorry, go ahead.
What happened is that for Israel to killing Palestine, there is something. And Palestinians themselves, they are still covering Hamas. They are not even come out and say, Hamas, we did not know you.
Okay.
Leave us alone. Leave this place.
Okay. I get the point because the lines are wild.
You understand?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Adekunle. I heard you. Thank you. I've gotten it. Adeni, I'm so sorry. Thank you. I have to go to the line. So what the last caller, Adeni, was asking was, look, he understands, he doesn't think Israel should be killing indiscriminately, but he understands Israel's response. And why haven't the Palestinians come out to actually condemn Hamas? I'll take one last call and then I'll let you answer those. Hello.
Hello.
Go ahead. What's your name and where you're calling from, please?
Great. My name is Deji Onodeko, and my angle of questioning is going to be quite different. I'll be as quick as possible.
Please.
I'm a
Yes. Go ahead.
And I'm beginning to observe, and I'm just wondering. I've never felt so powerless in an international situation when I see all the updates everywhere, and I'm just wondering what role we as regular Nigerians observing this from a distance, especially as entertainers, what role can we play to help? Because this is what's happening. I'm observing a lot of Palestine celebrities, for example, the DJ Khalid and the like, being spammed with questions of, hey, you should support Hamas. You should support Palestine. You should say something. What role can we play? I feel powerless. How?
What is it that you said you do?
I'm a filmmaker.
Okay, you're a filmmaker. Thank you, Deji.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Right, that was a filmmaker. His name is Deji. He said he's never felt so powerless about an international event in his life. And he would like to know what we creatives can do to actually help to change the situation. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for those excellent questions. And I'll try to be brief. Is it a revenge? Emmanuel asked, is it a revenge? In many ways, it is a revenge. You cannot hide it. Israel is punishing Gaza and punishing Hamas. And for many Israelis, Gaza and Hamas are identical for the terrible crime of the 7th. They will claim, and they do claim, that they do it in order to prevent such attacks again, that it's not revenge. But when you see the indiscriminate killing, you cannot come to another conclusion but that it is also a way to punish, to take revenge, and if I may add one more element, and to show Israelis that we do something. After this horrible fiasco in which thousands of Israelis were totally naked from any protection on the 7th, the army has now this ambition to show here we now, in many ways, correct our terrible mistake on the 7th And we are doing for you now this whole operation to take revenge, to prevent, to punish, and many other motivations. Now, about the question that if Israel can target Hamas, why do they kill so many? I can only give the official answer because I'm not there. The official answer is that Hamas, and it seems to be real, that Hamas really hides under the surface in very heavily populated areas. By the way, all Gaza is heavily populated. There are no open spaces in Gaza. And in order to get to the underground, you have to destroy everything over the ground. And therefore is all the destruction, all the killings. I think they give the example of Hamas hiding in hospitals and schools and shelters. They say that that's their fault. I say that you don't shoot hospitals no matter what. And you don't shoot schools no matter what. But that's my opinion and not the official opinion.
Okay.
Why don't the Palestinians condemn Hamas? So you have to separate between the Palestinian in Gaza and Palestinian in the West Bank. I think the Palestinian in Gaza, and you see it in polls, had enough from Hamas. Because finally it was an irresponsible behavior to launch such an attack without taking care of any protection to the civilians. They knew that Israel will react. What did they think? Israel will not react to killing of 1,200 Israelis and kidnapping of 200. It was clear that Israel will take very serious measures, not to build enough hospitals, not to build enough shelters, not to supply enough food for the population, and concentrate only on the military capacity is not a human behavior. I'm sorry. But Israel doesn't have a way to get to Hamas without doing all the destruction. And the Palestinians are not condemning in Gaza because they are afraid. In the West Bank, they are praising Hamas because, and we must admit it, they are right now the only organization which really resists in an active way to the occupation. And the last question to the filmmaker, I understand this feeling and I have news for you. You feel helpless to do something far away in Nigeria, and I feel helpless here in Tel Aviv, which is 1 hour drive from Gaza. I have friends there. I have people I care there. I don't dare to call them because I don't know if they're still alive. I'm ashamed to call them. They live 1 hour away from my home by car, not by plane. And we are all helpless vis-a-vis this huge machinery of war, which again and again destroys so much for the present and for the future. And by this, I think I would like to thank you, because I guess we are reaching the end of our program. And I must tell you, before you will sum it up, that I didn't know what to expect as a first interview in Nigeria. And I'm overwhelmed and really touched by your questions and by the questions of the viewer, of the listeners. Really, I mean, I'm giving so many interviews right now, mainly in the West, obviously, Europe and United States. This was something different, and I will not forget this hour for a long time now.
Thank you. So you said I can't call you Egbon, but in Nigeria, when we say Egbon, that's a term of endearment. You say, and my relatives that are listening now, because I'm even calling you Gideon, they'll be like, you don't know he's no senior, you know. So thank you so much, Gideon Levy. Thank you, journalist, writer. And yes, I will call him activist, even if he doesn't call himself that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a
wonderful
weekend. You too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Lagos, Nigeria will be right back after this break.
The number one talk station of Lagos is closer to you than ever.
Join the conversation online or on the go.
Be part of the Info family on our user-friendly mobile app and website for a better and improved listening experience.
Download the app from Google Play Store and App Store.
With super efficient and clean audio quality.
Log on to nigeriainfo.fm.
Watch us live on YouTube and Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter at NigeriaInfoFM.
And Instagram at NigeriaInfoFM Lagos.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Let's talk.
Welcome back, Lagos, Nigeria. We have news headlines right now, and then we'll be right back.
The biggest stories around the world.
3,298 inmates on death row in Nigeria prisons.
All in one platform.
Plans are underway to evacuate Nigerians in Sudan.
Let's talk sport.
Let's talk information, news, and current affairs.
He recommends that INEC should not be a defendant when we have election petitions.
Together, we'll have a great conversation and more.
On 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Nigeria's biggest conversation.
President Muhammadu Buhari says the country cannot afford a fresh lockdown because Nigeria's economy is too fragile.
We can only build a better and more prosperous Nigeria, one community at a time. Now from your area, the thing will start.
Your favorite dial, 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
The number one talk station of Lagos is closer to you than ever.
Join the conversation online or on the go.
Be part of the Info family on our user-friendly mobile app and website for a better and improved listening experience.
Download the app from Google Play Store and App Store.
With super efficient and clean audio quality.
Log on to nigeriainfo.fm.
Watch us live on YouTube and Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter at NigeriaInfoFM.
And Instagram at NigeriaInfoFM Lagos.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Let's talk.
It's 5 o'clock.
The headline news on 99.3.
Has called for the removal of electricity subsidy in Nigeria. Members of the Orilo Perishable Food Market Association have protested to the Lagos State House of Assembly over what they say is a continuous delay in approving the location of the market. Meanwhile, Executive Chairman, Agboyi Ketu Local Council Development Area, Dele Oshinawo, has faulted the protesters' claim, saying there was never a meeting between the authority and the group of traders to discuss requests for a market site. Nigerian actress Funke Akindele has expressed her heartfelt gratitude to Nigerians after her movie A Tribe Called Judah became the first movie to have reached the 1 billion naira milestone. President Bola Tinubu has congratulated popular Nollywood actress Funke Akindele on the success of her latest movie A Tribe Called Judah. These are the stories we're tracking for you. We have much more at the top of the hour 6 with our full bulletin. I'm Sheriff.
The only station that puts you first.
Security apparatus that we have, they are not only ghosts. They cannot be everywhere at the same time. Let every Nigeria be the first responder to whatever crime that is being perpetrated towards them.
If government is doing exportation, I know that nobody is going to frustrate them. And they will create job for people, but they're just sitting down there waiting for money to be shared.
Your number one station for talk. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Welcome back, Lagos, Nigeria, 0700 993 993 993. The female-only line is 01465 7190. WhatsApp is 0809 597 5805. Were you listening to that interview? Do you have any questions, any response, any comments that you want to discuss? Now we have the time because of course our guest had to go, and I tell you, it's taken us a while to get him on. So mega busy. Okay, the lines are going. I'm coming to your calls now. Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
This is Ambrose. I'm calling from Imo.
Go ahead, Sam Ambrose.
Yes, personally, the war between Israel and Gaza always put me off. That's why I always pray that it never comes, because whenever it happens, the way I see civilians die, it's what pains me much, you know. But it's really unfortunate that the Hamas or the militants always, go. They know that Israel's retaliation is always 10 times, just like the Americans. When you hit an American soldier, they hit back 10 times. They know. We have been watching it happen, every time. So what pains me, when they know that the Israelites will always hit back 10 times than the one they did, why do they always go after the Israelites? Because their civilians are always
Israelis.
Yes, Israelis, yes. They always hit back. Watch them. Right from history. Whenever these people attack them, they always hit back 10 times. And more people die than that died in Israel. So I just don't know. So I think the best thing for them to do is to just find a way to go for this agitation and stop fighting Israel. Israel is a superpower. So
what do you mean by find a way? What do you mean?
Like the United Nations, something they have been talking about.
Well,
to
do you
solve the
know
problem.
that? Do you realize? Are you aware that there's been over 100 resolutions, that's attempts by the United Nations before October 7th, which Israel has either not abided by, so United Nations have tried to solve the issue. In fact, 1967, the issue was more or less resolved till Israel then began to occupy the division that they have given them. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I know the history. I know the history.
No.
Even when the Arab
if you
countries
know
fought
that,
them, even when the Arab countries fought them because of that.
No, forget that. If you know that, why then are you saying, why should they not try and find a way to solve it with Israel? United Nations.
No, what I mean is that I think the peaceful means to me is better, because the way civilians die.
Of course, the peace,
it's
and
not
do
a
you
best option.
realize?
I understand.
You're correct, and there has been 2 or 3 resolutions for a ceasefire, which has been vetoed by the United States at the United Nations. So again, what would you like the Palestinians to do?
But it's not to be fighting. I think they look for.
Indeed, it's not to be fighting. And the Palestinians have asked for a ceasefire, and over 159 countries also demanded a ceasefire. One was led by Qatar, another one, I've forgotten the country that led it, and they were vetoed by the United States. So you see, and Israel also did not vote in favor of a ceasefire. So who do you think is fighting?
No, even the last ceasefire. You remember the last ceasefire? It was Hamas that broke it. You know now. Even the last ceasefire. It was Hamas that broke it.
The last ceasefire. The last ceasefire, you're right, which lasted 7 days, which lasted for 7 days.
Yes.
Right. Both sides were blaming each other. Hamas blamed Israel. Israel blamed Hamas. Now, is Hamas, again, and this is what Gideon was saying, people must stop, Hamas is not necessarily synonymous with the Palestinian people. Just like APC is not synonymous with Nigeria, PDP is not synonymous with the Nigerian people, Labour Party is not synonymous with Nigerian people. Incidentally, there are at least some 15 or 17 political parties in Palestine. We know of the 2 main ones, just like we know of PDP and APC. One main one is Hamas, the other one is Fatah, which is the Palestinian organization. So anyway, we've had a conversation. Let me go. The lines are gone and they will say that I'm cheating. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you.
All right.
Hello.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
This is Mrs. Oboli.
Okay, Mrs. Oboli, go ahead.
So this is really disheartening, honestly. This back and forth. I need a clarification on something. Recently in the news, I heard that the Hamas deputy is dead. What does this portend for what? And is there an end in sight?
Sorry, what do you mean?
I said recently, I heard in the news that the Hamas deputy, was killed, was recently killed.
One of them, not deputy, one of the senior Hamas people.
Do you think this would make them have a rethink and just stop all this killing?
No. That's the answer, no. As if you heard Gideon, he literally said, yes, you've killed one, and you think that's a victory? What is that going to do? You've killed one member of Hamas. What it does prove, though, is that Israel, who claimed on the 8th of October last year that they are at war with Hamas, it goes to show that if indeed they're at war with Hamas, they can get to Hamas if they wish to. They don't have to kill 22,000 people and rising in order to get to Hamas. Thank you, Mrs. Oboli.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. What's your name and where you calling from, please?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Good evening.
I can hear you. Sorry?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. What is your name and where you calling from?
Good evening. This is Philip calling from Lasso.
Okay, go ahead, Philip.
Okay, my question is this, okay. The agreement, the 1948 agreement between Israel and Palestine, what happened?
What do you mean by what happened?
It
wasn't an agreement. Okay, so let me explain. It wasn't an agreement. In 1948, a few months before the declaration of independence of Israel, or the state of Israel, a vote was taken by the League of Nations. The vote was to partition the land of Palestine, part of it, for the state of Israel. The Palestinians were not part of that vote because that vote was taken miles away in America. However, it took 3 minutes for that vote to be passed in favor of the partition. Therefore, in 1948, having passed the vote, the state of Israel was declared. 55% of Palestinian land was, I didn't say country before you all start calling me. There is a difference between country and land. Country is a legal definition. So you can all stop. I need you to know the difference. Land exists. Country is a legal definition. Right? So the land was Palestine. So
but that 1948 there was but Israel agreed on 2 states.
No, hold on. That's what I'm explaining to you. In 1948, 55% of the land Palestine was given to Israel. So therefore, the state of Israel was declared in 1948. Right? Not long after, war broke out between.
That was the Palestinians collide with the.
It was the Arab War.
So collide with some Middle East countries like Jordan,
the Arab War, yeah,
Syria,
yeah,
and they came there with Egypt and they attacked Israel.
Yeah,
but Israel later won the war. But now they are not like what Joe Biden was telling Netanyahu that also they should agree on the 2 states, and Netanyahu said no.
Yes.
I read like what happened in Beirut now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the prime minister, the foreign prime minister of Lebanon is rising in Washington now.
Yes, so I need to get to your point. So your point.
Okay. That's exactly that's my question. So in 1948, assuming they agree in 2 states, like all what is happening now, it will not happen.
750,000 plus, and those are the ones that's on record, were forcibly, violently Palestinians, 750,000, who had been living peacefully, happily, getting on with life in their land, were violently expelled by Israel after the declaration. Do you think things were going to be peaceful?
We should just be praying for them for there be peace.
Well,
the
we
way
need
it's
to.
going now,
Yes, I agree. I
it will
agree.
escalate to the
It is
third world war.
escalating. Thank you. Well, hopefully not a world war, but thank you. Zainab, you have some things on WhatsApp.
Yes, I do. This is he doesn't come with any name. The message is not coming with a name. Can Israelis tolerate what the people of Palestine have been experiencing right from the time the Palestinians have allowed them to occupy some of their lands, killing of their Palestinians, imprison them, killing the children, restricting them, raping them, to mention a few. No,
that's a very good question.
Adisa Wasi Oweye send this in.
The answer, if you're asking me, is no. Actually, no. Israel would not tolerate, and this is why I would say no. And I'll tell you categorically, they won't. You heard Gideon, who is an Israeli, talk about brainwashing. I say indoctrination. And when I went to Israel, the one thing that was apparent to me was this intense indoctrination. This indoctrination that's seeded by a fear, the fear that's projected and injected into the people and the society of Israel, to say everybody's against us, they're coming after us, they don't want us to exist, which quite frankly isn't true. So yes, the answer to very good question. The answer is no, they wouldn't. We also know they wouldn't because you have apartheid in the West Bank and you have a blockade in Gaza. The answers are there.
All right. Another one from Baba Odu. He says, thank you, my sister, for bringing someone who have come to balance things. I remember some people accusing you of only bringing guests who are on the side of Palestinian. Even with this, they will not be persuaded. Most Nigerians are talking it as a religious issue.
Yes, thank you for that. It's true. Some of them are still on my Instagram. Yes, hopefully they'll get over themselves.
Okay, good evening, Cecile Gay, and thanks for this awesome program. Please, may I ask, why is it that you're always taking side actions of Hamas? Hamas stingers this conflict, but you never condemn them once. If Hamas have the devilish mind to strike Israel the way they did on October 7th, 2023, they should know that Israel will come after them, and therefore think of their people, the Palestine.
It's why are you guys not putting a name? Philo, is that the name?
Yes.
Right, Philo. Thank you for thanking me. However, if you've been listening to this show, you would have heard me say 100 times, if not more, what Hamas did on the 7th. And in case you haven't heard it, please hear it now. What the attack on Israel, Hamas's attack on Israel on the 7th of October was atrocious. It was shocking. No, I do not applaud it, but like Gideon asked, we have to ask, why did Hamas do that? And as most people will say to you, what happened on the 6th, and on the 5th, and on the 4th, and on the 3rd, and all the months, and the days, and the hours, and the minutes, and the 7th, prior to the 7th of October. You see, those questions, as the UN Secretary General Guterres said, the actions of Hamas on the 7th of October was not in isolation. And I'm not going to do that pretense and say it was in isolation. We actually, as they say in America, we can walk and chew gum. We can have several truths exist at the same time. That's what I want you all to go away with. We can accept that what Hamas did was abhorrent, it was horrible, it was mostly affected by civilians were mostly affected. Incidentally, the kibbutz, as you would have heard Ken Roth, my guest last week, said the kibbutz are socialist sort of enclaves. They had mostly moderates, if you like, liberal Israelis. So yes, but they were the ones that suffered. We can accept that truth, but we can also accept a truth that with occupation, with ethnic cleansing, with colonization, with consistent and persistent and unabating violence, with impunity, with aggressive displacement, comes something called resistance. And that is something the South Africans know very well. And any of you that support or ever respected the great Nelson Mandela, any of you that was on the side that supported Nigeria, standing up against apartheid in South Africa, then surely you can't be disconnected from what is going on right now. Even Mandela had to default to a military section in the ANC. Yes, in order to get the attention of the world. Even Mandela were called terrorists. Or Mandela and the ANC were called terrorists. And yes, they also did some horrid things. But they were fundamentally a resistance group. The same with the IRA. And I grew up under the IRA. I grew up at a time when the IRA was so active. I would be in boarding school. If you got back to London on holiday, literally, you couldn't get on the tube because immediately there would be an IRA bomb. There would be a bomb scare and we had to run and you just had to get out of the way. Several truths can exist. Several truths. We have to stop thinking in a linear format. Open up your mind. Critical thinking is what is important here. And it's critical thinking that I talk from. Not from a place of one linear, one side, one solution fits all. Do you have anything else before I go to the calls? The lines are alive.
This is Hassan from Okokomaiko. He says, good evening, Sister Gay. Please, I want you to touch on the video you saw. Like, what comes to your mind? And I think you talk about vengeance and also the time attached to each videos.
Oh, yes, the video that I saw in...
Thank you.
Yeah, that's Hassan, right?
Yes, Hassan.
Hassan from Okokomaiko. You're talking about the IDF, the video that I saw that the IDF showed us in their secure location. Yes, you want me to talk about it? And I said, I mentioned vengeance, yeah. I spoke about this last week. And, let me be, look, Nigeria Info, we're a family and we're going to do frankness with each other. And I'm going to be frank with you. I started writing the article, and every time I start, I stop. Every time I start, I stop because I have to take my mind back to process, so I'll be processing and then, life happens or something and then I'll get on my laptop and I'll start writing. And then I would literally just get like Deji said, I feel really powerless. I've got anger growing inside me. The fury just rises. The video that they showed us was a collection, so a collage. If you know what a collage is bits and bits joined together. A collage of clips, short video clips from CCTV, body cams, what do they call them? Dash cams, Hamas body cam and first responders and stuff like that. So it was put together by the IDF, which were to be or expected to be at the time, certainly, the most horrific clips that they could, and they were horrific. I've had people, friends, families, colleagues say to me, how were you able to watch that? And one of the things that I did open my eyes and watch, because why else would I go there if I can't watch? What's the point of closing my eyes? Was the beheading of an IDF soldier. And I saw that. I saw the beheading. When I talked about vengeance, what I'm saying is, for me, having watched it, and as I continue, so the video starts, the earliest clip was just before 6, and you've heard people say 6 a.m., 6 a.m. Yeah, so it was just before 6, and the latest one that I saw, if memory serves me right, was about 10, 11. So this obviously went on for a heck of a long time. It is said that 3,000 members and possibly more Hamas members actually invaded Israel on that day. So the carnage and everything were around. So given that they were able to go on for that long, we know that response from Israel was slow, inadequate, whatever you want to call it, but it certainly didn't immediately stop them, right? Given the fact that Israel, since October 7th, we went from 1,400 and something to 1,000. The numbers have continued to reduce, so that tells us that certain and if you remember my interview with the Israeli ambassador, he did say that part of the reasons for that was because they were discovering that some of the numbers counted of those who had been killed on October 7th were actually bodies of Hamas members. Anyway, to answer your questions, because the lines are going. Vengeance. When I talk about vengeance, when I said the word that kept coming to my head was vengeance, is because, like I said, certain things I saw, I've told you about the father and the 2 sons, where the father was killed by Hamas, but they didn't touch the sons. In fact, they took the sons back inside to the house, and the Hamas guy, soldier, whatever you want to call him, operative, I think is what they call them, just went into the fridge, opened the fridge, drank water, and drank a bottle of milk from a bottle of milk, and just left. I was actually petrified because I thought he was going to, kill the children, but he didn't. He left them. So that's one. The other thing was why I said the word vengeance kept coming to me was there was a girl who was in a car. As you all know, that the festival was attacked, and lots of young people died at the festival. Of course, it was all mayhem, people running all over the place. There's a clip where the Hamas guy goes to the girl and he says to her, "Are you IDF? Are you IDF?" And she must have said no, because we don't hear a gun go off, we don't hear her being shot, right? The other one was there was an IDF soldier who they had killed, and then one of them brings out a knife. When I say them, Hamas, one of them brings out a knife. You want to hear it, Lagos? I'm going to tell you. And literally just cuts off his neck, his head, severs his neck from his body. But we know that was an IDF because he was in the IDF uniform. The other that comes to mind was they killed an IDF guy and they called him child murderers. So those kind of clips that gave me a pattern. For me, they created a pattern. And the pattern was vengeance. Vengeance against the state of Israel and whatever had been happening back. And that's not to justify it. I can only give you what I saw. I can only share with you my thoughts, what I conclude from the clips that were shown to me. There were lots of other clips, but those 4 come to my head because they kind of gave a pattern that if you don't look closely, you may miss this pattern. So that's why I use the word vengeance. And remember, the kibbutz, as I told you, the one we went to, Kfar Aza. If you've ever heard an Israeli or any member of Israeli government talk about Gaza, they always call it Aza. They don't call the G. Why? Because that is how they call Gaza, Aza. So where we went to, Kfar Aza, is actually Kfar Gaza. That is why it was literally in the back garden of Gaza. That's why we could see Gaza 3 kilometers ahead. That's how the Hamas was able to break through from Gaza, etc., etc. I hope I've answered your questions. Whew. Yeah, I'm going to come to your calls now. Hello.
Hello, Cecilia. This is Memnon from First Start.
Go ahead, Emmanuel.
Yeah, I think let me quote the Bible for people that says, give no room for evil. What I mean by this, for example, is that go back in history. When the Red Indians were attacking Americans and scalping them, they called them savages. But before you call someone savage, you need to ask yourself a question. Was he always a savage? You always need to go to the point of origin. And in this whole situation, for like a whole 17 years, it's like the world has become comfortable in injustice so far as they're benefiting from it. There is no creature in the world that you can keep even for 3 years maltreating it and expect nothing to happen. There is no justification for Hamas, but there is also no justification for these so-called developing countries. You sat down for 17 years and you are happy to send them aid, but not willing to do anything relevant. Even after Mandela should have been a lesson. Did Mandela need to be in prison for 20 years? No. Did these people need to suffer for 17 years? No. Everybody wants peace, but nobody wants to pay for it. That's what I say.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello?
Hello.
I need you to turn off your radio, please.
Hello, Susobe.
Yes, sir. What's your name and where you calling from?
My question is...
What is your name and where you calling from, please?
My name is Austin. I'm calling from...
Okay, Austin, your line is not good, but go ahead. Let's try.
Okay. Now, my question is, Israel has always said that they want to agree to the two-state solution, which has been preferred, over time. And Hamas has always been the stumbling block. Not only Hamas, and that the Palestinians who are taking it as a state policy not to see Israel exist. Can you get me?
Yes.
That the Palestinians are the problem. Because each time Israel had wanted to agree to the two-state solution, which has been propounded over time, the Hamas and especially the Palestinians will not agree to that. Because
that is not true. That is not true.
Yes.
That is not true. That
So can you please,
I will always correct
the
the
rundown.
untruths.
Let me finish so that I can listen to the radio.
No, but that particular sentence.
I will listen to the radio. Let me just finish my question so I can listen to the radio. So now, the question is, how true is it? Can you run us through history as to how Israel or how the Palestinians were really prepared to accept the two-state solution? Can you run us through that?
How the what? How the what? Sorry.
I said what I'm trying to say is that can you run us through how the Israel or the Palestinians, according to you, that have wanted to agree to this two-state solution,
okay,
and that Israel is the cog,
okay,
like you have pointed out over time, according to your discussion.
Okay,
that Israel is the problem. Israel does not want to agree to the two-state solution. That is that is what you propose.
Okay.
So can you run us through how Israel has disagreed, or is it Palestine that is actually disagreeing to the two-state solution?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So, in fact, I don't even need to go back. To answer your question, it's simple. Netanyahu has said it. He said it just what? What are we in? We're only in 2024, right? We're still in the first week of 2024. He said it in December 2023. He said, I am not going to be caught out by the Oslo Agreement anymore. Yes, he did. Let me take you back a little. Do you remember Yasser Arafat? Yeah, not everybody liked him, but yes. You see, Yasser Arafat used to be a radical, PLO. Then he stopped being a radical. That's what happens, right? Stopped being a radical, started to talk, and they were agreeing. You've heard of the Oslo Agreement. You've seen that famous handshake with Yitzhak Rabin, I think it was, and Yasser Arafat. That was all about the two-state solution at Camp David. That's it. The handshake at Camp David. That was all about the two-state solution. In actual fact, what Yasser Arafat was agreeing to was just 22%. Listen very carefully. 22% of what was originally Palestinian land is what Yasser Arafat was signing up to, just for peace. And guess what happened? The Israeli guy, Yitzhak Rabin, and Yasser Arafat, they were slowly agreeing. And before they could conclude, Yitzhak Rabin gets assassinated by an Israeli right-wing extremist. Yes, in Israel, not by a Palestinian. And Yasser Arafat dies. But of course, the minute Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated, everything went to pots, as they say. The conversation died. That was the two-state solution. So you see, there's been several times when we could have gotten to this two-state solution. But indeed, Netanyahu has agreed, or he's accepted, he's admitted, he has stated that he does not want a two-state solution. That's what he means when he says, I'm not going to be caught out, or I'm not interested in the Oslo agreement by Oslo. Right? If I take you a little bit back, there wasn't always a Hamas. There was a guy called Mohammed Yazin who was a paraplegic. I think he was even blind, if I remember rightly. He was on a wheelchair. He was an extremist. He was part of the Muslim Brotherhood, I think. Guess who empowered? Notice I said empowered, not created. Empowered him. Netanyahu. Why did Netanyahu empower him? Because Yazin was anti-Arafat. And Netanyahu did not want Arafat or the two-state solution to succeed. Neither did Yazin, because they felt that Arafat had become too much of a liberal. So they empower Yazin. Yazin goes on, yes, you guessed it right if you've been watching this, to create Hamas. Yep, and then all aided by Israel. When I say aided by Israel, they gave him money. He then gets stronger. He goes into Gaza, he builds mosques, builds schools, etc., etc., and it becomes popular, right? On the other side, you've got Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat dies, there's an election, and guess who wins? Yep. In Gaza. Who wins? Hamas. Of course, Yazin had been killed by Israel before this time. Because, of course, the monster you created will always come back to haunt you. Right? Remember America and Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden? When you create monsters, they will always come back to haunt you. So I hope that answers your question. There has been many opportunities. This is why you hear occupied, because Israel continues to break international law by expanding every second, every day into Palestinian land. Yep, I'm coming to your cause. I hope that answers your question, sir. Hello.
Hello, Cicero.
Yes. Turn your radio off, please. Hello.
My name is Tunde.
Tunde, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Tunde.
Please. Well, my own take in this situation they have been talking since I was listening. You know what? This Palestinian issue and America, I believe, you know what's painful in America and UK? They have citizens in Israel. They have citizens in Israel. So immediately, Hamas invaded Israel. Do you know why? They know what they're supposed to do. This is because they are fighting because of their citizens. That is why they are supporting Israel. And I believe that they are just being corny on that issue. They have right to cease the fire. But I agree they can call Israel to order and say Israel should stop. I believe we will stop. But the painful of the thing that they are seeing, the painful of the issue that is going on there is that their citizens has been killed during the invasion of Hamas. That is why the American and UK can't stop Israel from invading retaliation of Hamas. So based on what you just said, whatever you create will surely come back to you. I believe they can do something like that. The my last solution that they should find way to look for a peace and let everybody live peacefully in the land. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much. You know, it's interesting. My caller perhaps doesn't realize the importance of the point that he made. And unfortunately, missed his name because it wasn't very clear. Israel is actually a country of returnees, European returnees, right? So either they're first generation or second generation. So yes, like I told you, Ilion, the government spokesperson that we played earlier. Yep, born and bred, grew up in Finchley. He and I met. The minute he heard my accent, he's like, "Oh, where are you from?" Like that, right? Okay. Gideon Levy, that I've just had, his father was born in the Czech Republic. So many. There are those who are born in Poland. So yes, they are returnees. And there are lots. So if you like, you're right in the sense that lots of foreign citizens, from Russia and stuff, are in Israel. So I get what you're saying. Thank you very much for that contribution. Zainab, what's up?
Okay, Ima from Lagos. Good evening, Sisioge. Israel can do what they are doing presently because Palestinians don't have an army, air force, navy, and Mossad. How could the almighty Mossad not have seen the October 7th coming? I believe the Israeli government allowed this happen so they can push the Palestinians out of Gaza into Egypt. Ima from Lagos.
Well, that's an interesting point. I did put that to Ken last week, Ken Roth, and he said, well, that's cynicism taken too far. I'm paraphrasing. But, history certainly will be, this is one of those moments where I want to believe in the afterlife, that we do come back. But honestly, if we come back, I'd like to come back again as myself, because I'd like to read what history says, or at least I'd like to live long enough to be able to read what history says about what we're witnessing right now.
And then Adebayo is asking, please, is Prime Minister Netanyahu more powerful than President? Because Netanyahu has been the sole voice for Israel since the war began.
Well, yes, he is. Basically, that's the long and short of it. He is more. Even in Palestine, you have in the PLO, you have Prime Minister and you have the President. Yes. So, yeah.
Okay. Another person is disagreeing with you.
Go ahead.
Until humanity acknowledge God and what He has to say, there will be no peace on earth. I disagree with you that the land in question is Palestine land. Read the Bible and see who owns the land.
No. Move on.
Okay.
It's that simple. I'm not reading the Bible.
Okay. In your reckoning, do you think the 55% of land given to Zionists in 1948 was up to the size they occupied in biblical times before they immigrated to Europe and other parts of the world?
Well, to presume that they immigrate, why are you all presuming that they immigrated to Europe? So land, right? We can't say Israelis were spread across Europe. That is a fact. I didn't tell you they immigrated, but they were certainly spread across Europe. When those of you that wish to default to the Bible, I will give you the answer that Ilan Pape gave when he was on this show. He said, how would you like it if somebody comes knocking on your door and said, hang on a minute, you see that house that you're living with your parents, that your grandfather built on? Yeah. My people were there some 2,000-3,000 years ago, so I need you to get out. How would you feel? It's literally that simple. Let me give you an even different example. You see that country called the United Kingdom? Yeah. There was a time when it was invaded, when it was the land of the Saxons. It wasn't always the land of the English. There was Roman Britain and all of that. So imagine that people now come back and say, Otio, see that house, Sisioge? No. It's my great from ancient times house. So those of you who want to default to the Bible, I leave you with this. Yeah? I leave you with this. Bethlehem is in the land of Palestine. Jerusalem is in the land of Palestine. And that's just facts. Those are geographical facts. Some of you, I will also send you to my Instagram handle, where I have posted a few days ago a picture, and it's authentic, of a Palestinian passport. Yes, from all those years ago. That's my answer to you. Any other one?
Yes, Joseph from Ogudu says, "Good evening, Sisiogi. Happy New Year. Someone asked you last week on USA relationship with Israel, war with Hamas. I heard you responded that USA are supporting Israel, giving Israel ammunition to kill civilians. Are you not wrong on that response?"
No, of course I'm not wrong. Where have you been? Go ahead and do the homework. Did you not hear it when Biden said, "We've got your back, Israel"? 200-pound bombs. Blinken is even on his way there. I've told you, borderlines is not done for conversations. As they say in Nigeria, it's a saying in Nigeria, come correct. Of course I'm not wrong. Even Gideon said it.
Okay, Jaja wants to know, I want to ask, is life of Palestinian after October 7th better than the life they lived before October 7th? What then did they benefit from the attacks of October 7th to even make them say they will repeat the actions of October 7th over and over again?
That's a good question. Is their life better? Well, I put it this way. I'm going to invite you all, to go and follow some Palestinian handles on Instagram. Like literally, go and follow some Palestinian handles on Instagram. Some of them posted their life before October 7th. Yes, it was an open air prison, definitely. Yes, they lived under a blockade, but they made the most of what they had. Palestine, by extension Gaza, had 93% literacy. Hello? How many does your country have? So yes, their lives were better, or be it not good. Okay? They had hospitals. They had universities. They had writers. They had academics. They had poets. They had the seaside. They had fishermen, even though they could only fish so far, because Israel says to them, you can only fish so far, otherwise they'll kill you. But they had to make the most. Imagine if this island was under a blockade and we couldn't get beyond, or we couldn't get on Third Mainland Bridge to cross to the mainland. We would make the most of what we've got. So yes, they did. They were under a blockade. It was a horrible existence. But where you've got life, the only way to respond and to fight back is to hang on to hope. So yes, they did. They had life and hope before October 7th.
Right. Gbade Akonde.
I'll come to your calls after this. Yeah.
Okay. Gbade Akonde says, "God bless you for the analyst you are giving us. People don't know that the land belongs to Palestinian people." Please, trying to. Okay. Good evening, Sisioge. In as much as I condemn Israel brutality on Palestinian civilians, why does Hamas using children as a shield? Mike from Ikorodu.
Good question. What we know, or what we've learned, or what has been said, is that Hamas has tunnels under, 400 kilometers of tunnels around Gaza, right? Connection, so one goes into the other. Some of those tunnels are said to go under hospitals, etc., etc. But here's the thing: think of Gaza. As I've said on this show before, Gaza is smaller than the length of a marathon. Yeah, the length of a marathon is 65 miles. 26 miles, I beg your pardon. 26 miles. Gaza is smaller than that. Right? And the rest of it is water. That's what I'm giving you, just the land size. And then the width of it is about 5-6 kilometers. So what do you think? But let me put a question back to you. What would Israel do if Hamas were hiding inside Israel? Do you think they would carpet bomb Israelis? Would they really? That's the question. So we would then also then ask ourselves the question, why does Israel feel the need to indoctrinate its people? Why? You've heard Gideon is an Israeli. He talked about brainwashing. Why is that necessary? I'm going to come to your calls. Can I go to the call?
Yes, please.
Okay. We're almost done, people. Hello?
Your personal credit limit will be reached.
Whoever makes that call, you need to stop. If you're not going to call, you're not going to call. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree to you, Ireti. To me, who have been following closely the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for about 3 decades, Shimon Peres and Yitzhak Rabin were the only premier ministers really committed to peace with the Palestinians. All other prime ministers have been headliners whose policies and actions compounded the problem. It's your contribution.
Okay, thank you. Right. Anything else? Like, can I go to the calls?
Yes, for now.
Hello? 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 Are you there?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. What's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
Yeah, Happy New Year once again.
Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, I'm Sunday. I'm calling from Ikeja.
Okay, go ahead, Sunday.
Yeah, please. Actually, I just want to contribute to the issue between Israel and Palestinians.
Okay, go ahead.
And I want to say it is not justified for the both sides in terms of the killing that is going on. You see, at the same time, it takes one that is religious in between to ask for forgiveness. And that is one of the important things that God so loved. If you offended God, the best thing you do, in as much you recognize, you ask for forgiveness, and the God is merciful to forgive you. But the both sides are not really justified in times of killing. You can't justify both of them. And one thing I so much I can see about these Palestinians, the Palestinians, they are more like the populated people in Israel, and they are not country. They are just bodies to Israel, and they are the most populated people. And these guys, when issue comes, they never like Israel. That is one of the things that's creating enemy between these two people. And at the same time, you see, if we should go detailedly on how the origin of the war and all that misconception started, you discover that Palestinian in other side is faulty. And
How
this is not the first time.
How so?
This is not the first time that the Palestinian has been so rude in terms of Israel intimidation. They just of recent, what happened in that October.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people who came with influence in entering a border and killed about 50 military of Israel
Mm-hmm.
and scattered away with the civilians.
Mm-hmm.
And with doing this, Israel discovered that these people started again. And the prime minister never likes those people when it comes to killing even one citizen of Israel. When you kill one citizen of Israel, you have killed. It's like you have killed thousands.
I need you to wrap up, sir. Time is going.
In summary, I will say the killing in the side of Israel is not justified. So I advise that Israel should look the other second way around and put an end to it.
Okay.
In as much of the situation on ground.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good evening, Sisi.
Oh, good evening. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Good evening. What's your name? And where are you calling from, please?
Happy New Year. Austin from Lefty.
Who?
Austin from Lefty.
Austin. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes, Austin, because we're almost done.
Sisi, I want to ask, what
Go
is
ahead.
so special in Hamas? Do they have any natural resources that makes Israel to always put their eyes on Gaza. What do you call it?
I don't understand.
I'm asking a question.
Yeah.
Is there any special natural resources?
Oh, in Gaza.
In Gaza.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That's an excellent question. I mean, and this is part of the facts. The fact is, insane amount of gas was discovered, in Gaza, like a decade ago. And if I remember rightly, the UN resolution had even said, both countries should divide it equally or share it equally. But since this war started, Israel has actually issued at least 4 or 5 additional contracts for gas exploration in Gaza. Wow. At least there's certainly an Italian company. That's one of them. Yeah. So yes, you ask a good question. There's always money in the middle.
I know those are you people. They don't go to where they don't put their eyes to where they
like they did in our land, Avi. I get you, my brother.
They did in our land. They collected all our artifacts.
Yeah,
to their place.
And they still called us barbaric. Yes.
So those people have this video. They should take their time.
Thank you.
Nice day to see you, okay?
You too, my brother. God bless you too. Hello. Chief Mister, good afternoon.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you
too.
too.
Thank God for joining mercy.
Amen. Thank you.
These Hamas people, are they still in that Gaza?
Well, that's a good question. Israel seems to say they are. Israel would have you believe, not seem to say, I beg your pardon, that was incorrect vocabulary. Israel would have you believe that they are. Israel will have you believe that Sinwar, who's the head of Hamas, is in Gaza. But the same Israel was able to kill one of Sinwar's, by the way, is the head of Hamas. One of Sinwar's direct reports, right? One of his chief superintendents, if you like, in Beirut just a couple of days ago, without killing any civilians, with a drone shot. So do you really think they're fighting Hamas?
With what happened in October 7, the Palestinians, what are they saying about what the Hamas people did?
What are they saying? What they're saying is, in the West Bank, especially, where Hamas was not popular at all, Hamas is now very, very popular. What the Palestinians are saying is that we finally have somebody, a group that's actually fighting for us. Because you have to remember, the Palestine is not a sovereign. They have not been allowed to be a sovereign country. They have not been allowed to have their own agency. They don't have their own governmental structure, if you like, right? So they don't have their military. Israel controls everything. So because they've never had a military, how could they go to war? So back in the 80s and 90s, you would always get Israel coming in with armored tanks and everything, and Palestinians responding with stones. So a lot of Palestinians are now thinking, you know what? Yeah, these people are fighting for us. We finally have a group that's actually going to be fighting for us in a way that we couldn't do before.
They are receiving the heat now.
Yes, they are. But, when all you have left is life, because when you look, the devil and the deep blue sea, you do what you got to do, right?
Well,
Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. But the UN need to come in. All this
the UN has tried. America has vetoed the UN. The UN has tried several times. Other countries have tried several times.
They need to come in, please.
Now they have come in. Now Israel is talking about expelling again, deporting again, forcing Palestinians from their homeland to some African countries.
African countries, no now.
Well, we have to say no, because literally, what's that all about? Not only is that an injustice, not only is it egregious, it is wrong, and we do not want to be complicit. We get our own problem for backyard. We do not want to be complicit.
The Israelites, please, they should just take it
Israelis, not Israelites. Israelis.
The Israelis, they should just
Thank you.
Easy, please.
Thank you, Chief
Thank
Minister.
you.
Thank you. Right, this is the last Last message or last call?
Yes, last message.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening, Sisioge. I'm Mario from Bagada. I have noticed that most Christians, especially in this country, take side with Israel in this conflict just because they believe they are God's own people. The misinformation from the Western media and this crisis is intentional, especially from the UK and the US.
Yes, it is. I'm not going to argue with you. It is. I mean, Western media, I'm so glad I'm not there, because if I was there, I literally would have gotten into a fight because they are one directional. That's actually the one that I don't, the one thing that Gideon and I would differ on. I do agree with Hamed Al-Qud when he said the Western media killed my family. It's a play on words, but I understand. I think I reposted it on my handle, so I would like you all to go and listen to it. If I didn't, I would I'll check after this show and I'll repost it again. I'd like you to go and listen to it, please. I mean, I don't know if we'll be able to actually post it on our Nigeria info handle so you can all go and listen to it. Yeah, you're right about Western media. But, some of them are trying to shift a little and do balance and all of that stuff. Anyway, I've got to go. I've run out of time. Right? It's 6:00. Try talking. Well, it's almost, yes. Try talking for as long as I do every Friday.
Many more messages pouring in.
There's loads more messages pouring in.
Loads of messages.
Loads of messages
questions,
pouring in. Oh, wow.
Contributions.
Wow. Okay, sorry. Well, look, why don't you send it to me on at Sisioge Lagos on Instagram and on Twitter. Until next week, when I will be back with 2 shows, Down for Conversations and Borderlines. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. Yes, Sisioge Lagos signs out. I am tired. I'm going to get a glass of water. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Take care.
The biggest stories around the world.
3,298 inmates on death row in Nigeria prisons.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens.